Bad news for Philadelphia. 76ers star Joel Embiid has been diagnosed with a displaced flap of the meniscus in his left knee. That's according to The Athletic. Embiid's doctors and the team are continuing to discuss treatment options, which could include rest and rehab. They are even considering surgery, depending on the severity of this injury. Embiid hurt his knee in the fourth quarter in the loss to Golden State on Tuesday. He was among the frontrunners to win the MVP again this season, a historic season, really, that he's been having. But with the league minimum of 65 games, it is safe to say that he is not gonna repeat as the MVP. Let's break down this injury as we welcome in Marty Jaramillo, our injury analyst. We've also got John Collins, CBS Sports basketball expert, to talk about this. Marty, I want to start with the injury, though, because displaced flap of the meniscus. That sounds a little daunting when you hear it initially. Just give us the clarification on what this injury is for Joel Embiid.
Sure, Hailey. Listen, Joel, Sixers, they're in a tough spot right now. So the meniscus, remember, are two C-shaped discs that sit on top of the tibia, the lower bone, and they spread forces across the joint. It adds to shock absorption, and because they cup the femur, it actually gives them stability. So you lose some meniscus, you technically lose a little shock absorption as the career goes on. Now, in that C-shaped disc, in this case is the lateral meniscus, picture a tear, and that tear literally flaps over, and it kind of just stays there. Now, can you play with a torn meniscus? Yes, but here's the risk reward. The treatment plan is based on three things: the size and type, we know it's a flap tear, okay? The location inside of the knee where less blood supply, outside of the knee, possible repairable where there is a little bit more blood supply. And then the third thing is, despite the type or the size of the tear, what does that cause? Does it cause range of motion problems? Does it lock the knee? Or does it prevent any type of sport-specific movement? Now, so we know the type, we know the other variables. Now there are three choices, and this is the risk reward. Short term, best case scenario, no surgery, 3 to 4 weeks. But with a flap tear, it's just unlikely, because there's always a risk of having pain, chronic swelling that only makes your knee a little bit unstable as we move forward. So that's the best case scenario, 3 to 4 weeks. The other two are surgical options, and this is where it becomes tricky. Traditional arthroscopic surgery for any meniscus surgery would be about 4 to 6 weeks. But with a flap tear, which is usually a larger tear, now you predispose the athlete for long-term degeneration, possibly arthritis of the knee, long-term. This is what they're weighing, short-term versus long-term. Long-term, the worst-case scenario is that the tear is towards the outside of the joint where there is good blood supply, and you can repair it and actually save all that material, but that's a 3 to 4 month option. So that's the problem. Where would we do this? You know, I believe at some point he's not going to be able to avoid surgery. The question is when and where.
Oof, yeah, I was taking notes as you were talking, and I felt like it just kept going from bad to worse in terms of the rest of the season outlook. John, when you hear Marty break down the displaced flap there, the timetable went from 3 to 4 weeks potentially to 3 to 4 months potentially. How, when you're hearing that, does that impact the 76ers going forward?
Yeah, it's not good, Hailey. I mean, you said it right there. You said that it goes from bad to worse, which is really the story of the Philadelphia 76ers in perpetuity, and the story, unfortunately, of Joel Embiid. I covered the entirety of the process Sixers. I watched him sit out the first 2 seasons of his career with the foot injury. And I remember when they shut him down the second time before his rookie campaign, how grim it was for the organization. I don't want to say that it feels like that now, but the preponderance of injuries that just, you saw the laundry list that you guys just put up on the graphic there that he's had over his career. It's just a huge bummer for Joel. It's a huge bummer for the franchise, and it feels like Groundhog Day. I know we just had Groundhog Day, the actual one, but the Sixers are going through it with Embiid all the time, and you've seen what happens when they don't have Joel Embiid available. This season, when he's on the floor, 26-8. When he's not, 4-9. That includes the other night when they needed all 51 points from Tyrese Maxey to beat the Jazz. They've slipped from 3rd to 5th. The Knicks are ahead of them. The Cavs are ahead of them. I mean, this is a team, Hailey, that previously was looking at adding at the trade deadline to compete for an Eastern Conference championship, potentially somebody like Bruce Brown. Now you have to wonder, do they go out and get a stopgap center, somebody like, I don't know, Kelly Olynyk, just to try to keep their heads above water and remain afloat in the hopes that Marty is right and maybe Joel can play again this season? You know, fingers crossed as always, I guess.
Yeah, you definitely want the health of the athlete in the forefront. But listen, I think if you need surgery, get it done now and you start prepping for next year maybe. I know it's not what the Sixers want to hear, but right now that is their reality. John and Marty, we appreciate you helping us understand the implications of this Joel Embiid injury. Now, I mentioned it off the top. At one point, pretty recently, Joel Embiid was the favorite to win the MVP. He was having his historic season, putting up 70, 60 points a game. But now he's out of the mix. As you take a look here, it's Nikola Jokic actually the favorite to win, followed by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, my guy Luka Doncic in the mix as well. So some changes now that Joel Embiid will likely not be able to compete for that MVP award.